I didn't think it was necessary at the end of this video to show the guy that she was supposed to be walking with.
Why?
Because it felt like I was gonna walk with her.
Oh, and this is about your love affair with Jill Scott, isn't it?
See, I wasn't talking about that. That was not
See,
the issue.
As a woman's piece, you would like to know you were out on a walk with him all that time.
See, and I want to know that she was on a walk with me.
You reading your own personal narrative into that. Like,
I'm sure I speak for all men.
I felt like she was with me.
I'm sure I speak for all men. It was the fantasy of it. I think that's something that we need to explore in our conversation.
I think we just did.
Oh, I didn't know this was already on the record.
I didn't really understand what the benefits would be, but I had seen this before.
I think we have our teaser. Okay.
Okay.
What's the name of it?
This is called Chai and Gray.
Okay.
A date night with the doctors.
Do you have that like written somewhere?
On this computer here.
Good evening. If you can hear our background groove, then you know what time it is. This week, one of the things that I have been counting down to personally has been the Jill Scott and Erykah Badu.
Who are we? Who are we?
I can go back and do that. I'm sorry.
Okay. That was a joke. That was
What?
part of.
Who are we?
Yeah, because you were so excited. I was joking. See,
Oh, that I've forgotten the name?
Yes.
Oh,
And
okay.
you forgot to introduce us.
Okay.
See that because you were saying let's make it more conversational.
Yeah.
So that was part of the.
Okay. I was gonna go back and do that, but okay. All right. Okay, we'll be loose and fun and
That's what I was going for.
I'll be honest with you. Something you should know about me. I'm slightly tightly wound. Okay.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah. I've been keeping that from you, but here in year 10,
You hit it. You hit it well.
welcome to another episode of Chai
And Gray.
Date Night with the Doctors. If you're listening to our groove in the background, then you know what time it is. Erykah Badu and Jill Scott will be putting it down today, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm so excited about this. All week long, whenever anyone talked about a deadline or a date, I would just judge it against whether it was before or after the Erykah Badu and Jill Scott challenge. These are two women who I love and who my husband loves, and I'm a little concerned about that. But it's a separate topic.
I don't know that woman. I have not met her. So we can't be accused of anything. Okay.
So, where do you think we should start?
Okay. The debut of, I want to say my first reaction at Jill Scott.
Okay.
Back in 2000 when she debuted,
Mm-hmm.
I had never loved an artist from minute one.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I first heard her stuff.
Okay.
Who is this woman?
Okay.
Like, who is this woman who is singing to me? She's having a personal conversation
I don't know about that, but
with
okay.
me.
The story took a turn.
What was so funny was that I found out I wasn't the only one who felt like that.
Okay.
I was hanging in a coffee shop,
Yeah.
this coffee house, and this one dude, he was a barber, and I think he got a little bit carried away with himself. And this is before you started having Spotify or even, like MP3s players or iPods or anything like that. And he said that to make sure that Jill Scott was with him at all times, he said that he would he bought 2 of her CDs, one to keep in the barbershop, and one for the car. And so he never wanted to make the mistake of leaving without his CD.
Okay.
I was like, man, so that's my competition?
Yeah.
So,
For like stalker of the year, Jill Scott stalkers of the year. What were you competing for? I mean, this is...
You don't know. You weren't there. You don't know.
So Jill Scott debuted in 1999, was it?
The first
on
time,
Hinton Beach?
yeah, first time I ever really heard her was in 2000.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say for me, we've talked about Lauryn Hill. By the time Jill Scott came out, we had Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, and Jill Scott. And these are all very different in terms of musical approach, in terms of just physical attributes.
Physically, I find them very different. Their musical approach, I find the same.
See, I don't think so. But what I was gonna say, each one of them gave us something different, because I talked about what this meant for little black girls in that time.
Well, I was a little black girl.
Okay, and that's why we're here now. But as one, they were so vastly different from kind of what had been marketed as beautiful, even for black women,
Okay.
that they gave some new elasticity to the term beautiful.
I agree.
That I needed at that time. So when Jill Scott came out, I was like, wow, this woman is beautiful. And this is a continuation of the other neo soul voices that I had come to love by that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I love their grooves. I have to admit that when Erykah Badu first came out, I can't even give you a firm reason why I was not that much into her. I didn't really care for her that much. And it was my brother, Henry. Henry was like, my big brother was in love with him, some Erykah Badu. And I was like, why? And he said, I wake up in the morning and I read my Bible and I listen to Erykah Badu. I was like, wait a minute. Dude, like, is she all that? And so I had to actually go back and listen to her because my brother was so wrapped up into her.
Okay.
And I was okay, and then, my brother passed away in 2001. And it made me get deeper into her music, because he was such a huge fan. He was actually the first Erykah Badu fan that I knew. And so listening to her music, connected me. It made me feel like a little bit more of a spiritual connection to him and his passing.
So, I got to talk about the spirituality piece, especially since you bring it up.
Okay.
Because, like, when we talked about Lauryn Hill, if you were a Black Christian kid, there were like these easy kind of parallels. Erykah Badu, you had to step out of your traditional notion of Black Christianity as it had been constructed in the average Black church to get with Erykah Badu. But I loved her.
Okay.
I loved, as every generation does, finding the hidden meaning. And when she says this is what the 5%ers, over at the lunch counter, where you're dissecting Tupac and Erykah Badu, and here's what's really behind the lyrics. Like, Erykah Badu gave us a lot to feel like deep teenagers about.
Well, one thing I love about all three of them, their music, their vocals, the grooves in the music, and that's the reason why I said I didn't think that it was that different, because they had this groove.
Mm-hmm.
It was unapologetically black.
Mm-hmm.
It was, we're not trying to court a white audience. We're not trying to court a mainstream audience.
Mm-hmm.
This is some honey dripping soul right here.
Yeah.
It harkened back to me. Like I'm always playing 80s soul music, not 80s R&B, 80s soul, 70s soul. Those, I'm still into Enchantment. I'm still into Atlantic Star and Midnight Star. Well, Atlantic Star is kind of sold out, but they started doing more pop music. But Midnight Star and some of those groups, and Confunction, which you always laugh at me about. But they had the same grooves that Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, and Lauryn Hill came back with, and so I could listen to them all day. And we're going to talk about Dave Chappelle's Black Party in a second, but let's just not forget Dave Chappelle's Black Party, which
really was successful because of their ability to stay in the groove in a performance that every performer doesn't have, especially contemporary performers.
Man, okay. We can talk about it now.
I think we are.
Okay. Because I've been chomping at the bit to talk about this.
Yeah, what did you love about it? How would you describe the moment where they're performing if someone hasn't seen it?
If I had to pick one word, I would say magical.
Okay.
To admire, because I saw the Black Party years after it actually came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have been admiring both of these sisters for so many years, I never thought about them ever performing together. So it was, and then even when I saw them both, they were interviewing them both, for the Black Party, and Erykah Badu was performing, and they were talking to Jill Scott about Erykah Badu, and the slightest inkling in my head was it'd be so cool if they got out there and started singing together. But there were no collaborations going on for it, and so I was like, I got rid of that. And then Jill Scott started performing, and she's flowing with the Roots, which is already just like the baddest band. And then Erykah Badu comes out, and she's standing back there, and when I see Questlove tell them to get her a mic, I was like, there's no way I'm about to see Erykah Badu and Jill Scott singing together. But Erykah Badu was still hanging back. And then Questlove tells her, go to the front of the stage. And to see those two queens up there singing together.
Okay, but I don't think you've told why that exceeded. You told us what, but what made that magical?
It was their sheer beauty, their humility up there on stage together.
Okay.
It was not a battling diva moment.
Okay.
They were just singing.
Yeah.
They were not, they were not competing. And you could tell, as much as these two women were letting it fly on the vocals, they didn't seem to be competing against each other. They seemed to be saying, come on, girl. This is where I am right now.
Yeah.
Do this, instead of saying okay, I can do this, and will you do it? We, in my lifetime, I hadn't seen Aretha Franklin, Diana Ross, or a Patti LaBelle all take the stage together. I didn't see, Natalie Cole, because for me, my favorite singer is always Diana Ross. But I didn't see Tina Marie, with Diana Ross, which is funny because Tina Marie's whole career was built on the fact that Diana Ross, Berry Gordy, turned down a song that Rick James had written for Diana Ross. And so Rick James gave the song to Tina Marie, who was signed to Motown, but not, a recording artist. And that gave birth to her career. But I never saw them on stage together. So I never saw my favorite contemporary artist of that time take the stage together. Here, I saw them take the stage together.
Do you think that that's been intentional, that we haven't seen those kind of moments? Because that's what I loved about that it wasn't a battle, it wasn't a competition, but they were sharing this very beautiful moment together. It with this groove that they both had. Like, is it intentional that we don't get a lot of moments, that kind of moment, when we do see it, becomes magical
with Black women?
Right.
One of the reasons why I don't think, and we've been joined by our own little queen here, one of the reasons why I don't think we see it is because too many people, they have camps now.
Mm-hmm.
This is my camp, this is your camp, and all those type of things. Like as the Roots said on the Black Party, I guess they called it a documentary. Mm-hmm. They said that so often they all used to jam together in a club in Philadelphia, mm-hmm. and different singers would come through, and they would all jam together, and at any given time, before they all blew up, Jill Scott could be there, Erykah Badu could be there, Mos Def could be there. You know, it could be so many different artists all collaborating on that stage. And so for them to come up like that, they got rid of their egos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is being billed as Erykah Badu and Jill Scott duke it out in versus battle on Instagram. So I would add to that some of the reason we also don't see this, along with it being people have their own camps, is that this is how people make money, mm-hmm. off of our grooves, off of our very authentic presentations of Black music and sound.
I have a huge problem with that type of headline, that they're going to duke it out.
Well, that's the New York Post also, I should say.
Well, okay. But
there's a couple of them calling it a battle.
Yeah. Because true fans of Jill Scott and Erykah Badu just want to sit there and watch these two queens.
Yeah, we're not going for a battle.
Yeah.
We're going for the love.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they love each other.
Yeah.
But and the concern that I have is with the Teddy Riley and Babyface, you know, and so many of the other ones who've had their challenges, mm-hmm. is that some type of way corporate America is figuring out how they're going to commodify it. Mm-hmm. How are they going to own it? How are they going to take our love and make it something that's going to make them money?
But isn't that the way it's always been?
Yes.
Yeah. There's always that moment where it's commodified. It's packaged in some kind of way.
What's funny is, as I was saying earlier, these are two artists who never crossed over. Mm-hmm. These are two artists that, you know, like, that have not gained a huge white audience. Mm-hmm. But the New York Post, mm-hmm. is talking about them because, you know what? They know that we're anticipating it. Mm-hmm. They know that we are thinking this is going to be some love here. Mm-hmm. And so they're presenting it like it's going to be, you know, these two queens, you know, duking it out, battling, you know, when, you know, I have no idea. I think that we're going to probably see them, because most of the battles have been just people playing their music. This is what I anticipate, mm-hmm. seeing, that these two sisters are going to start blowing live. Mm-hmm. You know, we're going to start hearing some vocals live. You know, because they're not studio manufactured. Mm-hmm. You know, these women can sing, mm-hmm. and they don't need. You know, we all need a producer somewhere along the way, mm-hmm. but they don't need a producer to sound good.
Right. Yeah. They're just talented. Yeah. When many of these first started and they were like, this singer, songwriter, or performer, they're just doing this, get on over to IG. And perhaps the most popular, DJ Nice. I started thinking, wow, this is wonderful. And then I started thinking, how is corporate America going to get their hands on this? And right after that, I started seeing the ones that were sponsored by, you know, and it's so ironic that you can figure out how to commodify people's stuff in the midst of social distancing. Like, you can't even, through thievery, as has historically been the case with Black bodies, lay hold on their stuff and still in the digital say that you own it or own a piece of them or the way they choose to produce themselves.
Because they still own the rights to the music. They own they have contracts on both of them, and so we're still manufactured and produced through the lens of corporate America.
And I give a lot of credit to artists who are consistently creative, that figure out a way around. And I even feel in this moment that many Black artists were doing exactly that, figuring out how to take this moment and still put out really useful work in a way that showcase Black art.
I mean, let's face it. Is anybody waiting for that Ariana Grande and Katy Perry battle?
Oh, These are people who require a studio.
Well, we saw Katy Perry when after Missy Elliott came on the Super Bowl. Whose performance was that?
Right. She owned it.
Yeah.
Missy Elliott.
Oh, you had to clarify that? I mean, do you
Some people really like Katy Perry.
But do you remember your students asking you, like,
right,
who was that? Who just stole the show?
That was Black Sound unpackaged. Yeah. Wow.
Really
so
amazing.
I thought this was an interesting conversation, but that really keeps you humble. You want to come over here?
That's what she's trying to get anyway.
I love to hear stories.
You do? Well, Gaga's going to read a scholarly story.
Wow, no, it's a tag.
It is a tag.
May I keep it?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yay.
One thing, somebody who talked about this over 20 years ago, before it even just got debuted, was Mark Anthony Neal, Dr. Mark Anthony Neal. And what the music said, Black popular music and Black popular public culture. This is very important. And he addressed many of these things that we're talking about, but I liked what he said here. Artists like Boss and MC Lyte have often eschewed more feminine presentations of themselves and embraced a distinctly more masculine aesthetic in an effort to be taken seriously. Such agency has been afforded to Black female singers like Mary J. Blige, whose 1990s neo-soul style is drenched in hip-hop sensibility, or artistic hybrids like Lauryn Hill of the Fugees, Missy Elliott, Erykah Badu, and Queen Latifah, who exist across hip-hop landscape as vocalists and rappers, though their singing skills, particularly in the cases of Hill and Badu, are what is privileged within hip-hop discourse. Of course, after this, we found out that Missy Elliott had vocals, and we found out that Queen Latifah has some serious vocals. And so all those women can flow in hip hop and seriously flow with their singing. I'll also add that Jill Scott is a poet and many of her bones were made in Philadelphia as a poet, and you can hear the poetry within her lyrics.
Yeah, and I also think it's important, as he mentions, that they all had this kind of hip hop sensibility
Yes.
in their presentation that was partly gender crossing, but was also very authentic to who they were, and said something about what they had to do, and the kind of grit that all of those women had to exist in the spaces
Yes.
that they were in.
They were all allowed to bring their urbanist background, and they were able to bring so many things to the forefront, which is, I mean, even hip hop was built on, we talk about like the South Bronx and the vibe of the South Bronx and things like that, and Brooklyn and Queens, but their background music was still a lot of the old soul beats,
Yeah,
and the soul grooves.
yeah,
And so with these singers, they brought the original hip hop vibe along with the soul vibe of the 70s and the 80s,
yeah.
and
The connections to Nina Simone for Lauryn Hill were there from the beginning, for her and for musical critics. Yeah.
and I'm gonna throw one more person in here, because I had kind of a probably an awkward love affair with this person also. It has been Sade.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
We were just listening to No Ordinary Love,
Right.
and that song had a deep groove. And
I need to be honest and say I don't get Sade. I don't get it. But I respect it. I want to say that. Okay. Yeah. I just don't want to be sitting here like, yeah, I know exactly what. I
Okay.
just don't get it. But yeah,
I'm
go on.
I'm gonna let that go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Mommy, I'm making a race car.
No judgment, no public judgment right now on that statement at all from me. No public judgment. I have private ones. But anyway, okay, I'm back. But yeah, so, but my concern is what's going to happen to all of that? What's going to happen with, because we're kind of getting the old vibe of my grown up years, the old backyard parties that would turn to block parties with
Right.
these Instagram battles.
Online.
Yeah.
That's what's really cool.
I mean, literally, I've been chatting with family in Dallas. I've been chatting with family in Baltimore.
Yeah.
People all over the country, and like we'll say like, oh, right now I'm listening to this battle. Now I'm listening to D Nice, and then all of a sudden you find out that all your family across the nation, we're all collectively listening to this, and we're all into it.
I think of these as harping back to survival practices that Black people have always had. We're just using digital spaces in the time of the pandemic to do that. We've always figured out how to grieve together, how to laugh together, so we can deal with the grief, especially over this past week.
And then
I think we need this collective moment more now than any time.
And mind you, this is all going on during COVID-19.
Right.
So we're finding ways to caught that on camera. We're finding ways to, as my daughter takes out the bookmarks out of like things I want to read. But anyway,
We'll never be real scholars.
no.
Keeps us humble.
Yeah. But during this time, we're finding different coping mechanisms to how do we deal with a quarantine?
No blueprint.
Yeah, I'm think that's the reason why I'm so thankful to D Nice when because I'm going to give a shout out to one of our friends in Buffalo, one of our great friends in Buffalo. When I saw Keisha Arnold throwing it out there about, oh, D Nice is on, he's jamming, and then we immediately went on to Instagram, and we cranked the music up.
Yeah.
And then when these battles started coming up, that started making us like we would have a good time and be listening to this, and have Hazel, who you just saw, who stole all of my bookmarks.
You'll never.
There were 4 in
ever.
here. There were 4.
No.
So
Anything.
So Dr. Neo, sorry, but there were more quotes. But my daughter stole the bookmarks. but the 3 of us
use your own theories now.
But the 3 of us would just be in the kitchen jamming.
Yeah.
And she would start off with the dancing.
Yeah.
She would just start getting her little groove going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she'd walk up, Gaga dance with me. And then the dance would start.
Yeah. Yeah. So who do you want to see next in a battle?
I want to see some DJs go at it. I don't know who can mess with D Nice.
Okay.
But I like to see Kid Capri try.
Okay.
Can we see Kid Capri and D Nice go toe to toe?
I want to see Shirley Caesar and Mahalia Jackson.
Okay, since we're going that route,
I want to
see Nina Simone and Billie Holiday.
Right. All my people gonna be dead. I want to see the Clark sisters and the Pace sisters.
So you're gonna keep on choosing one live one day. The live people always gonna win.
I'm breathing.
Because they're gonna be like, in your turn, they don't have a turn.
I want to see Bishop T.D. Jakes and James Cleveland.
Okay,
Singers and preachers.
I'm going dead
at
alive,
it. Dead
okay.
and alive. Going at it.
Mommy.
Get out of here.
Mommy.
Who do you want to see in a battle?
Can you watch it with me?
Who do you want to see in a rap battle?
Watch it with me.
She want to see Moana going to
Wreck-It Ralph. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a battle. Moana. Would you want to see that one? Moana versus Wreck-It Ralph?
Next week on Chai and Gray.
Date night with the doctors.
No, I want to.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this video.
Go ahead. Say thank you for watching.
Thank you to watching.
Thank you for watching.
Peace.
Thank you to watching.
Thank you.